From the southern coast, Spencer's Gulf reaches up towards the centre of Australia. When you reach the head of the Gulf, the country has already taken on something of the harsh remoteness of the inland. To the south, the wheat country stops at the Flinders Ranges. To the west, the saltbush starts, stretching mile upon mile to the arid reaches of the Nullarbor Plain. This is the outback sheep country, of isolated homesteads and holdings measured in square miles. On the fringe of the saltbush plain at the head of the Gulf is Port Augusta. It looks small, but it's the last town of any size you'll strike on the way north or west. And for the people scattered for hundreds of miles over the north and west, it is civilization. To the stockman, down with cattle, a place to buy a few things. To rest a while before the long track home. To the miners, the prospectors, the hunters, all the people of that remote inner Australia, it's a halfway house to the cities. A place to relax. Until the money runs out and it's time to go back to the grind. To the lonely gangers who live along the rail lines, Port Augusta is where their wives can have babies in hospital and their children can go to school. But to the people who live in the town itself, it means chiefly railways. For this is the headquarters of the Commonwealth Railways and the starting point of the long lines to Western and Central Australia. You need only look around the streets of Port Augusta to guess that it grew up in the 60s, 70s and 80s of the last century. You might say that wool began it. Not long after South Australia was founded, sheep farmers moved up to these parts. They took their wool overland to the head of the Gulf where sailing ships carried it away. A little town grew up around the harbour shores, houses, hotels, churches, a customs house. But the town didn't always prosper. It was a rural centre, tied to the country around it in good times and bad. It might have become just another sleepy little port relying on the visits of occasional ships when the great Transcontinental Railway was begun. 1,000 miles of line laid across saltbush plain and desert to Kalgoorlie. The work was too big for any one state, so the federal government set up its own railway organization. It also took over the line to Alice Springs. The railways brought more jobs and steady money to Port Augusta. The old days of boom and depression were gone. More jobs, more people. Now the railways employ about 3/4 of the town's working population. They work in the machine shops, in the engine yards, on the shunting tracks, and on the station. They work on the wharf, where overseas and coastal ships unload supplies for the railways. The railwaymen load the trucks with a strange assortment of goods in these packing cases. Goods consigned to remote homesteads and far-off towns. They load the train which takes the fresh food and supplies to the settlements along the lines. The outback calls it the tea and sugar train. They work in the railway laundry, washing the linen from the trains. They run a special provision store where employees of the railways can buy most things they need at reasonable prices. Whatever their jobs, they all help, like the train controller, to keep the trains moving. Trains which run 500 miles north through remote cattle country to Alice Springs. Diesel cars 100 miles east to Woomera and 60 miles south to link with the state railways at Port Pirie. Air-conditioned, well-lit, designed for passenger comfort. And the Transcontinental run, 1,000 miles to Kalgoorlie. When steam trains ran across to the west, every fifth train had to carry coal and water to fueling points. Now, diesels have revolutionized travel on the Trans line. They carry sufficient fuel for 1,000 miles. They have reduced running time by a day and operating costs by 3/4. The driving crew work in comfort, with upholstered seats and a cabin insulated against heat and noise. On the new passenger train, the amenities and service are equal to those of any long-distance train in the world. The broad-gauge steam engines lie dead and deserted, ghosts of the steam age. Plenty of problems came with the railways to Port Augusta, a suddenly increased population stuck in an outback town. But the people worked together. They got what they needed the hard way, by their own effort. The railway workers built the children's playgrounds in their spare time. They've started a Mothers and Babies Health Association and plan to build a whole community center around this site. Volunteer first aiders on call 24 hours a day take this ambulance anywhere within a 200-mile radius. They have a hospital and fine schools. And they're battling for more and better housing. With water piped hundreds of miles from the Murray River, the townspeople are planting gardens, growing trees to give cool shade. And if you're driving your car across to the west, you can stay at the caravan park before tackling the Nullarbor. A huge new regional power station is being built 3 miles from Port Augusta. When completed, it will supply power for a network covering South Australia and will mean more expansion for Port Augusta. The people of the town have made their own sporting facilities. They built these tennis courts and the bowling clubs. The Gulf is ideal for sailing. And in the hot, dry summer, the children know how good it is to live by the sea. With nightfall, the life of the town changes. Some people go to learn. Some to play. And some to work. Day in, day out, timetables must be kept. For this is a railway town.